Alrighty, everybody, it looks like it is that time of the day to go ahead and get started. Looks like we already have Tam in here today, in from Kansas. Thank you so much. Everybody, just briefly wanted to introduce myself, but before we even jump in, anybody that's listening in the chat, first and foremost, thank you for being here today, and please just give me a confirmation that the audio is coming through nicely, that you can hear me perfectly fine. I would hate to go ahead and get started if none of you can actually hear me. So anybody in the chat watching right now, just let me know if the audio is coming through just fine. And if it looks like I'm looking away, looking at the chat, there is a very, very slight lag. So first and foremost, if you are listening in today, I'd love to know exactly where you are listening into. If you're enjoying a beverage this morning, what's your favorite beverage of choice that you're enjoying? I always love having these being nice and interactive sessions here as well. Perfect, Tam. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the comment. So, everybody, to briefly introduce myself, my name is Sam Jameson from the Eventbrite Boost customer experience team. And over the past 3 to 4 years, I've been helping event creators of all different types of events, all different sizes of events, use the power of digital marketing to help get their events in front of prospective customers to ultimately help bring people together at the end of today. So ultimately, everybody, what I would like to kind of talk about today, or to just give you a brief little agenda, first we're going to be going over what is exactly Eventbrite Boost, how can you be using Facebook and Instagram ads to help promote your events. We'll show you some successful examples of some of the best people in this industry for very strong campaigns they've run, and then go into an actual example showing you how you can create these campaigns yourself. Awesome, Kathy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that as well. Almost dinner time in the UK. Wow. Very late your way, so I appreciate you tuning in. If you need to jump off to, this is all recorded. You can always go ahead and watch back, but I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy evening to spend it with us here today. So, first and foremost, jumping in, everybody. I know the position that a lot of us are in. To give you a little context of where I started and where I started with event marketing, I was working in a 1350 cap concert venue in the Bay Area. I was actually the multimedia intern, so I was the person taking photos and videos at all their events. And ultimately, our marketing director was super, super busy, and they needed somebody to step up to the plate and start running ads for all the events. So I just wanted to empathize with a lot of you, as I know so many of you wear so many different hats in your organizations, especially if you're one person shows, kind of putting everything on yourself, that event marketing can seem really challenging when you're jumping into it. So ultimately, what we've tried to design here is have something that will allow you to, without a lot of previous experience, run some very successful ad campaigns and hopefully sell out your upcoming events that we have. So, just jumping in, based on some of the research that we've done, we found the creators that leverage platforms like Boost, digital marketing, on average sell around 16% more tickets. And we'll go into some of the intricacies of, how is this actually different than simply running your ad in Facebook? We have a lot of awesome bells and whistles specifically for Eventbrite customers that allow you to better use the information that you capture if you've been an existing Eventbrite creator to maybe remarket to people that have bought from you in the past, something that is sometimes a little bit hard to do if you're just running a normal Facebook ad. But ultimately, if you are somebody that's new with Eventbrite, you don't have a lot of data. We have some awesome ways that you can tap into the power and size of Eventbrite to get your events in front of other people that have purchased for similar Eventbrite events within your area. We also got Ron. Thank you so much, Ron, from Chicago today. Appreciate your comment. Thanks for taking the time. We got the Outlet LA tuning in from LA. I'm out in the South Bay myself, so always a pleasure to see another LA native in the house. So, jumping into it, I feel a lot of the reasons why event marketing is challenging for us is, first and foremost, it's kind of difficult to know what campaign to really run at the right time. When you hop into a platform like Facebook, unless you've maybe taken something like Facebook Blueprint, which a lot of times, guys, in all honesty, like 50 to probably 60, 70% of the info in there really isn't relevant to what we would actually do for event marketing. It feels like we're just kind of looking at this, like looking at hieroglyphics, and we have all these different options we could choose, and we don't really know which one might actually be most beneficial for the event that we're running. And a lot of times, some of the best in class tools were designed for somebody with a Harvard MBA over at Coca-Cola, a team of 30 different staff members spending a couple $1 million a day on ads, but they weren't built for us that might have smaller budgets within the event space, or are marketing something different, not doing these complex Tai Lopez e-commerce guru ad funnels and things like that. But ultimately, even if we do want to learn event marketing, simply we wear so many different hats as event promoters and event creators that a lot of times we just don't have enough time in the day to actually allocate to maybe taking a course or really diving into YouTube material or something to learn some of these new skills and tools to best market our events. And even if we take that full plunge into the pool, we kind of learn how to do all this, we start running ad campaigns. A lot of times it feels like we're just looking at a bunch of numbers that don't really make much sense to how is this ad campaign actually benefiting the overall outcome of my sales, or getting people to see my event pages or growing remarketing audiences. So these are a lot of the kind of challenging factors that I personally encountered when I started running ads within the event space. And a lot of times it kind of just feels like we're just trying to squeeze that lemon to get as much juice for our marketing budget out of it as possible, but we might not even know why we're squeezing it in the first place. Awesome. We got another person in from Atlanta today. We got a lot of people all over the world today. Thank you for carving out the time, everybody. So ultimately, to just let you know where you can first and foremost find Eventbrite Boost, you'll find Eventbrite Boost within the marketing tab. So if you go to the Manage My Events section where most of you normally create your events in Eventbrite, you'll see the marketing tab up in the top left. And we recently did have an update here just with a little bit of new branding. But just to give y'all a little bit of context here, effectively what we've tried to do with Eventbrite Boost is bring in a combination of both free and paid tools. So, if you're somebody that doesn't really have much ad budget, we don't want to alienate you from having other ways to promote your events. But if you're somebody that's looking to invest a little bit more budget in something like paid ads, we have a lot of cool bells and whistles in the marketing section that are accessible for anybody, no matter how much you're spending on ads, how much your marketing budget is. So to kind of just give you a brief breakdown of what effectively we have in here, it's a combination of some of the existing tools that many of you Eventbrite, kind of longer term Eventbrite creators might already be familiar with, such as the email campaign functions, the most popular marketing tool in Eventbrite, and then other things like the add your event to Facebook integration. So we really tried to create an all-in-one package here for you to have a one-stop shop to actually go to market your events. And just to let everybody know, today's main focus is going to be on the paid Instagram and Facebook advertising component, but briefly to talk about a couple other ones here as well. If I can give y'all any takeaway of something that you can do for free, doesn't really take a lot of time, but really makes a difference in terms of actually promoting your events, I'd highly, highly recommend everybody use that add your event to Facebook tool. Just on the surface, it might not seem extremely important, but the reason this is so important is especially coming after this past year of the COVID scenario when many individuals are kind of getting ready or feeling comfortable to come to events at their own speed. We've noticed that buying behaviors of many people for events have somewhat shifted. A lot of people, especially maybe if it's an outdoor event or there really isn't much urgency for us to purchase, we're not worried if it's going to sell out. We ultimately might be making that decision to purchase substantially later on down the road than we might have previously in past years. And the reason why Facebook events are so important is it's an amazing organic tool that you can use, and it also ultimately can help translate down the road if you want to run paid ads. And Facebook events are really beneficial, as if, let's just say I even click on your Facebook event. I don't even hit interested or going. You actually can now remarket to me later on down the road, maybe at a point where I'd be more likely to purchase. Or just organically, if I hit interested or going, I'm now going to constantly get notifications from Facebook about the event so I don't forget. The more people you have interacting with your events, the more Facebook realizes, wow, this is probably a pretty good quality event that we see people are interacting with. Let's use our platform and our reach to help get this in front of other similar people. And it also helps you build social proof, as a lot of times if we RSVP to one of these events, all of our friends can see, and normally events are a general pretty group thing as well. So if there's any takeaway I could give y'all today, please make sure that you're using this add your event to Facebook feature. It's a free tool, really, really easy for you to use, but it really is going to help actually build social proof, build remarketing audiences, and then ultimately later on down the road, if you want to do a little bit of paid promotion, you can actually promote this Facebook event, and it's one of the best campaign types that we actually recommend for both helping drive ticket sales, but then also building engagement and awareness for your upcoming events. So sorry for going on and on about that one, y'all, but I just wanted to stress how important this actually is as a foundation for advertising, or even if you're not pursuing paid advertising, it's a fantastic thing that you can just do for free that will have good benefits for you actually driving sales for your event. And skip it on to the email campaign function. This is by far one of our most popular marketing tools, another free thing for you to use within Eventbrite. If you don't want to invest in something like MailChimp or Constant Contact, you just want a free, simple, customizable email tool to notify your upcoming prospects, your past purchasers about all the different events. And from what we've seen in many studies, such as a study that Salesforce did a couple years back, normally when people are seeing your event on a few different networks. So, say for example, email marketing, Facebook, and Instagram, it only increases the likelihood that they are going to purchase for your event. As generally, when we're seeing events, from something from a print or publication to online mediums to various other online mediums such as email, just the better it gets in our head, the less likely we are to forget about that and the more likely we are to purchase. So I'd highly recommend too, if you're not using the email function, definitely look into it. Is it email marketing, especially let's just say, for example, Facebook and Instagram instantaneously went away today, email marketing would still be the pinnacle of many individuals' marketing tactics. But today's main focus that we're going to be talking about is how to advertise on Facebook and Instagram for your upcoming events. And please, I love for this to be interactive, so if I'm going a little bit too quick as we go through it, if you have any questions, please feel free to slow me down. I want to make sure that you are actually getting the why and having a valuable learning experience out of this. Even if you ultimately are a Boost user or somebody that just likes to use Facebook, I really want you to walk away feeling empowered and actually understanding the reasoning behind why we make some of the recommendations that we do. So let's go ahead and jump into it, y'all. Just to kind of give you an example of where you'll find this ad campaign section within the Eventbrite platform. If we go ahead and click over to marketing, we would look for the ad campaigns function right here, and this is where we would go ahead and get started with our campaign. Now, let's actually just go first and foremost into an example campaign, just to show you some of the value propositions that Boost actually brings to the table, and then we'll actually dive into creating an ad campaign to show you how you can recreate this yourself. Does Facebook take a percentage when adding it to the event? I don't believe Facebook takes a percentage when adding it to the event. I think that all should be through the native checkout integration, unless I am mistaken, which I don't believe I am mistaken. We can check on that for you, but I don't believe Facebook's taken like 5 or 10% of your purchase or anything like that. That would kind of be kind of be a little bit outlandish right there. So to basically just give you kind of a summary of what we have going on in Eventbrite Boost, we've tried to redesign Facebook Ads Manager in a way that's far more friendly for event creators to help you drive more sales and drive more registrations without having to invest more through smart optimization, help save you time through optimization and using stronger audiences, but then ultimately make the data that you see and reporting from your campaigns a lot more digestible for understanding how is this actually benefiting the outcome of our event. So normally whenever you hop into running a campaign, we're going to try to show you some of the most important metrics that you would want to understand for your campaign straight away. So as we can see towards the top right here, this creator spent around $300 on advertising their campaign, and they made around 3K back worth in ticket sales. So this was around a 10x return. I just want to reiterate with all of you that, if you run an ad campaign and you don't see a return like this, there has been a lot of recent changes with Facebook that might explain why you might not be seeing a lot of purchases being tied back from your ad. I don't know if many of you heard about Apple's recent iOS 14 changes, or if you kind of now download an app on your iPhone, it asks you, do you want to deny tracking or do you want to accept? Those kind of tracking mechanism, or if you ever heard of cookies before or pixels, most people are kind of opting out of that type of tracking. So if you run an ad campaign and don't necessarily see data like this, I don't want you to get discouraged, as this is just kind of an outlier good example of a strong campaign here. And ultimately, we're going to try to give you kind of a summary of other important metrics, such as how many people did your event ad actually get in front of in the first place? How many people actually interacted with your ad that might be likely to purchase at a point later on down the road? When it comes to event marketing, really urgency is the biggest key for actually driving sales. If we're advertising an outdoor event maybe 3 months out in the future, we're not worried it's going to sell out. We honestly might wait a couple days before to see if it's going to rain or have a thunderstorm before we end up making that purchase. So, in a lot of times when we spend money on an ad campaign, it's important to understand how many people are we kind of actually getting into our marketing funnel that we could target at a point later on down the road when they have a little bit more purchase intent. So this campaign here that this creator was actually running, this was one of those Facebook event RSVP campaigns. So why I took a good amount of time kind of stressing the importance of why you'd want to use that add to Facebook function, we find these ad campaigns are actually a really nice happy medium between driving sales, but also building engagement for their upcoming event. So this was one of our customers' Cream events out in New Zealand for a winter festival that they had coming up. So they were still a ways out from kind of the period when the vast majority of people had urgency to purchase tickets, so they ran one of these campaigns promoting their Facebook event. And not only did they actually sell a good amount of tickets from it, but they actually got a good amount of people to interact with the ad and RSVP. So these are people that are now kind of tapped into the funnel of these notifications, so they ultimately won't forget about the event. And then we, as advertisers, can actually remarket to them a little bit later on down the road when they might be a little bit more prone to purchase. So first and foremost, we've really tried to summarize the data that you get from your campaign so it's actually far easier for you to understand, not jumping through the minefield of trying to make sense of everything. But a second component of how is Eventbrite Boost different than Facebook, we've really tried to build the system in a way that makes it a lot easier for you to use audiences that are challenging for you to target in Facebook. The analogy I could kind of give here is like almost a meal prep service. Like if many of you are familiar with HelloFresh, it would kind of be difficult to go ahead and prep all of our ingredients, and then we go in the kitchen, and then we actually have to cook our entire meal. It would be a lot easier if we could have kind of those ingredients prepackaged or pre-delivered to us, so we could get straight to cooking. We're essentially doing the same thing with target audiences for your campaign. We help you create these target audiences, or we'll actually automatically build some of these for you instead of having to go to one separate section in Facebook to build the audience, then go to another section in Facebook to actually build those ad campaigns. So we can see here that this creator, a lot of different numbers on your screen going on, but they kept it pretty diversified. They targeted people that were interested in various genres of music here. They remarketed to people that interacted with their socials or bought from them in the past. And then they also used something called lookalike audiences here, which we'll go into that a little bit later on down the road. But these are ways that you can use data from people that purchased from you in the past or people that might have bought for other similar Eventbrite events to go after brand new people. So what our system does on the back end that helps you get a better return is every 6 to 12 hours, we'll actually move budget from the more poor performing audiences to the better performing audiences. Kind of think about it like somebody that manages your stock portfolio. Some sectors are going to do a little bit hotter at certain times of the year, so they'll probably move some of your allocation from one sector to another so that you have better overall growth. We're essentially doing the same thing with your ad campaigns to try to make you better bang for the buck. And down towards the bottom, we try to make it very easy for you to actually understand, okay, how are the different creatives that we're using performing, which audiences are actually driving the most sales or registration, but we also make it very easy for you to do some A/B testing as well. So that's kind of just a general overview of the campaign here. If I could highlight some things that this creator did really well, they actually ran the right type of ad campaign for where they were actually in the purchasing cycle for where their customers were going to purchase. They used kind of a nice variety of audiences, so they didn't actually put it all in one basket. And now we'll actually jump into how to create one of these campaigns to show you this example yourself. So let me just go ahead and swap over to my profile that I have right here. And also, everybody, feel free to drop in the chat too. What types of events are y'all throwing? What events do you have coming up? I always love to make this next part a little bit more interactive to kind of use some of your examples to show you, how might you create a campaign or how might you build your target audiences for what you have going here. Awesome. So one of the really unique things about Eventbrite Boost is we've tried to basically take all the learnings that me and my other coworkers have had in our heads and actually build it and automate it into the platform. So half the challenge that we've found of running a good ad campaign to promote your event is figuring out what type of ad should I run based on where my customers are actually purchasing. Awesome. We got. Sorry, I have my second monitor died today, so I'm working the chat off of my my iPad. So we have Wu Tang trivia. That sounds like a fantastic event. We got paint and craft parties. We got a lot of awesome different events in here today. I love it. So Getting back to what we have here, what exactly is this graph? You'll notice this whenever you hop into your Eventbrite Boost interface. But basically what we've done is this graph represents when your customers on average purchase for your events. And what we've created here is a way for you to select the upcoming event that you would like to advertise. And based on where you are in the event's life cycle and how your customers normally purchase, we'll actually recommend the right objective for you to run. That normally is half the battle. Is the biggest mistake I found in my experience is we simply might be running the wrong ad campaign in the wrong time period. Then it really doesn't lead to either building a remarketing audience or driving sales. So we've tried to solve this problem for you of actually helping direct you to what type of campaign should I run based on where my customers purchase. So this event, for example, that I have right here, I normally get around a good third. It's pretty equal throughout the purchases, but I generally get around a good third of my individuals purchasing or registering in the last kind of half leading up to my event. So this is recommending that I run a campaign going straight to my ticketing pages. Awesome. Fashion shows, webinars for people starting a business, upscale R&B events, jazz nights, open mics. Very grown at 65s. Awesome. We got a really diverse, eclectic group of event creators today, y'all. Thank you so much for taking the time as well. So, jumping into it, we are going to recommend an objective for you, and we'll give you a little context on why exactly we're recommending this objective. But I also want to give you a little context so that you understand why we might be suggesting an objective, just if maybe you're somebody that's a little more advanced or wants to know the exact why of what's going on here. So, we generally have kind of three objectives that we work with when it comes to event marketing. This one that we have on the left that says get people to buy tickets. If you're familiar with the Facebook lingo or ran ads in Facebook in the past, this is generally what's referred to as a link click or conversion ad. It's kind of kind of just a fancy word for saying we're running an ad campaign that goes straight to your eventbrite.com ticketing pages or your website. Now, these campaigns are generally best to run if you actually are in a period when your customers are likely to purchase and they have urgency to purchase. One of the best things I try to do is I always try to take a step back and envision myself in the role of your customer that might be attending or purchasing for your event and ask myself the honest question, if I was in my buyer shoes right now, in all honesty, would I purchase a ticket for that event? And if the answer to that question is no, maybe you might not want to run one of these ad campaigns that goes straight to the ticketing pages, as we might know that people might not be as likely to interact with it or kind of click on that ad if they realize, the event's 4 months out, no, I'll worry about it a little later. It might be better off if we ran something like an event response ad or one of the engagement related ads to foster some social proof, build up a remarketing audience, and then maybe as we get in that last month period when we know people are going to be purchasing a little bit more based on what we have seen in the past for our events, we could run an ad going straight to our ticketing pages. So just keeping it simple here, you can run this objective that goes to your eventbrite.com pages or your series page if people are actually purchasing. But if you know, in all honesty, people probably aren't that likely to purchase now, I might recommend something like the event response campaign. Now, just to be fully honest and transparent with y'all at the moment, there is an existing issue with Facebook that basically we are experiencing and some users are experiencing in Facebook right now, preventing them from boosting some of these events. If you are using the Boost platform, a workaround that you could actually do here is you could use this custom link option to basically just enter in the link to your Facebook event yourself. But just wanted to make all you aware that I always want to be clear and transparent with all of y'all. But this is a fantastic campaign objective normally when we actually could run these, as you could kind of think of them as a hybrid between driving sales for those that want to purchase, because it uses the Eventbrite embedded purchase so they can basically just purchase tickets right in the Facebook event. Kind of the same amount of clicks as sending them to your ticketing page, but almost a better user flow is they're not even leaving Facebook. The only downside to these ads is they unfortunately don't run on Instagram. So if you have like an older demographic anyways that normally is on Facebook, they're normally purchasing, this probably would be the objective that you would want to run. And then over on the right hand side, we have engagement style ads. But keep in mind, a lot of times, these ads sometimes target people that are very likely to maybe comment or like a post or share something, but might not be people that kind of got off their butts and went to a live event like the last 5 years or something like that. So if I was like stranded on the desert island, I could kind of only pick two objectives to run. I would probably stick to these two. And you could think about it moving from left to right. The ones that we have on the left, so get people to buy tickets, best for driving ticket sales, and as we move further on the right, better for engagement. So sometimes you might want to meet in the middle to basically make it accessible to everybody. But for today's option, everybody, let's roll with the option of if we were sending straight to our Eventbrite.com ticketing pages or rolling with the recommended objective that we had here. So for a little context, the way you pay for ads, unfortunately, if it was my perfect world, I can make the choice. We could run all these Facebook ads for free. But if we were to set, $50 or $100 budget for the campaign, Facebook still needs to get paid at the end of the day. So the way that we basically are able to run ads through our platform is basically built off of the back of Facebook, and the way you pay for it is through something called a Facebook ad account. Think of this as almost like you setting up your credit card with Facebook. It's how you pay for your ad campaigns. So all that you want to do is choose, okay, what's the ad account I would like to pay for my campaign with, and then what are the Facebook or Instagram page that I would like to go ahead and run my ad from here. And then normally if you choose a Facebook page and you have your Instagram account properly synced to it, it'll go ahead and pull that. The one that I chose right here doesn't have an Instagram account, hence why it's not being chosen. And then if you know anything about Facebook pixels, it's okay if you don't. If you have multiple, you can always choose which one you want installed on your ticketing pages. If you don't know what this is, don't even worry as we handle it for you automatically. This is one way that we can basically track purchases that come from your ad and then help remarket to people that visit your pages. It used to be really complicated back in the day. Like 3 years ago, I'd have to get a huge thing of text, send it over to some dev team, they'd install it. We automate installing the full thing for you, and you don't even have to think about it. So if you don't know what that is, don't stress it. It's almost you don't really need to know what it's doing. Perfect. Now in this next section, we're simply entering in, what's the location targeting we want to hit with our ad. You can put in anything from like a zip code to a county to a market to a country to a continent, etc. Generally, most cases people are working with a market or targeting something like a 50-mile radius around the destination. Of course, it's going to be context dependent, as if you're in LA, 50 miles is like 3 hours if you're doing that drive. But ultimately, we'll normally pull in the location of your event. My event was an online event in the entire US, so if you ever leave the box blank, you'll just hit the US by default. But you could always type out any markets or locations that you would like to add to your campaign. And down towards the bottom, think of this as a lower bound for the age range. So if your event serving alcohol is 21 and up, very easy to apply that 21 and up targeting here. And I would recommend if you are advertising an event that uses liquor or anything suggestive in the creatives, try to go ahead and set that to 21 and up. As if you set it to 18 and up, Facebook's kind of notoriously crazy about flagging stuff, and they basically have you switch it to 21 and up anyway. So you might as well bite the bullet and just do that initially. And I wouldn't stress having to really set like an upper bound for the age range. Facebook is going to outsmart us all every single day of the week when it comes to stuff like this. I've learned that the hard way after spending around $100,000 on A/B testing these different ads. Facebook beat me at my own game, so just trust Facebook, they'll figure it out for you. Awesome. So this next section is the step where we're choosing who would we like to target with our ad campaign. So let me switch this over to the view that many of you will see when you first hop in here. We kind of have a simple view that if you don't want to do a lot of stuff manually, you just want us to help set up these audiences for you. Very easy to do so here, but if you're somebody that's a real like pro ads manager user, works with all the Facebook custom audiences, lookalikes, we do have a view that allows you to easily customize that yourself, but most of us today are just going to work in this view where it's kind of automatically handled for us. So let's start off with the first box that we have up here. So most of you that might have ran an ad campaign before on Facebook, you probably worked with something called interest, demographic, or behavior targeting. So this effectively is a way that we can simply target individuals that are kind of fall under having a specific interest or fall into a certain demographic or a behavior or something like that. An interest thing could be, let's say for example we were marketing a yoga event. Normally what you do whenever you're configuring this, y'all, is you're simply just typing out like kind of what's the main topic of your event about. So let's pretend for example I was marketing an online yoga event. I'm just going to go ahead and type out yoga. Maybe I might type out something like exercise here. I can spell exercise today, man. We're losing it, everybody. So let's go ahead and put in exercise. Generally, we're just trying to kind of type out a couple things here to kind of fish and almost see what we can target. You can't target everything under the sun, and a lot of times, y'all, there's no rhyme or reason to why you can target certain things and why you can't. For example, Billie Eilish, top 10 artist right now in the United States. we can't target Billie Eilish, but we can target people interested in Billie Jean for some odd reasons. So a lot of times if you type something out and it just doesn't show up, you're kind of out of luck as Facebook's like, we don't have enough data for you to target. So I generally kind of type out some broad things related to your event in this section. So, in this case, I might choose something like hot yoga. And then once you actually maybe enter in like 3 to 4 interests in this section, Facebook can help suggest other interests that are similar. You could use the plus buttons to automatically add stuff in, but personally, I like to click on the drop down to see what it actually would recommend. It's just sometimes I've had really weird random stuff where it'll put in like Sylvester Stallone in the Expendables 3 when I'm advertising like a cooking class or something something like that. So don't fully trust it. Kind of just click on the drop down to see, what else is similar that we can maybe add into this section. And generally, y'all, there is no right or wrong answer to how many interests should you include. The more important thing is just kind of having a good sized audience for your area. So if we entered in an interest that only had like 1,000 people and we were in an area like Los Angeles that has millions of people, odds are that's probably a little bit too tiny of something for us to add into that section. So generally what I'd recommend maybe as a good rule of thumb for you to shoot for, there's no right or wrong answer, as I've seen people have incredible campaigns where they only hit one interest, and I've seen people have incredible campaigns where they put in 30 40 interests in here. But just the important thing is, I'd say maybe shoot for having around 5 to 10 interests here in this section. And you can type out a couple, use the drop down to get some recommendations on other things here as well. So like let's go to one of our friends' examples that we had, like paint and craft parties. For an example, maybe we could type out something like paint and just first and foremost just kind of see what effectively shows up. So look through here, yeah, and you'll find out like how many weird, like you can target people interested in bear paint, automotive paint, paint pro shop, paint monsters. It's kind of crazy the different stuff that you could target here. Let maybe try typing out like painting and see what we can effectively get. Okay, so maybe people interested in painting, maybe even like watercolor painting might be something in here. Facebook is always taking something a little bit broad and kind of optimizing it down over time. So generally, we might type out something like arts, see kind of what shows up in this section. Generally, it's you're just kind of combing through, then using your own context is you'll probably even know that context a little better than I do for the people that are interested in your types of events that you're throwing. But we can look through here, maybe people interested in maybe just like art just in general here. Sometimes it's okay to go a little bit broad as Facebook optimizes this down over time. But a couple examples of like cool behavior or demographic targeting that you could use in this section. Let's say, for example, that your event, maybe your painting event, is a fantastic like birthday type event. Like I remember birthdays I used to go to back in the day at like Color Me Mine. That was always a smash hit and stuff like that. You can actually target people that have upcoming birthdays. So what you could do in this section is you could maybe type out something like birthday and maybe use something like the demographic targeting to target people that have birthdays in the event on October. That's something personally that I've done with other club type events or painting events, anything that kind of appeals to a good group of people that might be a cool birthday event or something like that. You can always kind of go out on the fringes a little more and maybe use some of the behavior or demographic targeting. For some of you that have family friendly events, such as we've done stuff for like Disney on Ice types event, or like Backyardigans Live or funky stuff like that. A lot of times I find the parent demographic targeting is an absolute gold mine. So anything that would attract families or people with kids, you could basically type out parents. It's kind of creepy how granular you could get with this. And the only reason you can do this is everybody posts on Facebook and makes a life event of when their kid is born. That's exactly how Facebook knows the age of these children, in my opinion. A little bit creepy, but if it was an event that catered to moms or maybe dads with younger children, you could enter in something like parents with preteens, etc. So feel free, guys, just type a one in the chat if you're kind of following along so far in terms of what you would be doing for interest targeting, or type a two if you kind of aren't understanding or I could clarify it a little bit better, and feel free to drop a question too as well. But we also had a couple other individuals in here, such as the Outlet LA. You're doing R&B events, jazz events, things like that. For any of my music or comedy folks here in this section, we've created a tool that allows you to kind of build these interests a little bit faster. So to give you an example, when I was building campaigns in a concert venue, generally what I would do in this section is I would go look up a particular artist, write down a list of their similar artists on a platform like Spotify or Google, and then spend like 20 minutes typing out all those interests one by one. And I get frustrated as I realized I can only hit like 10 to 15% of all the ones that I wrote down. So we built out a tool that actually helps automate this for you. So let's just say, for example, I've been working with a Beatles and Rolling Stones cover band. What we could do in this section is we could type out any artist that's on Spotify. Normally, this probably wouldn't work as well for a really, really small or really, really tiny artist, as odds are Spotify just doesn't have, or Facebook just doesn't have enough data to effectively target those individuals. Come on, treat me nicely today. We're getting a little performance shy here with this one here. Might need a little refresh, but basically type out any artist that's effectively on Spotify. Let me try reloading this just to give you an example. My apologies and thank y'all for bearing with me today. Technology doesn't always work in the entire intended way we'd like to do it, especially when you're built off of a lot of other platforms as well. But the nice thing is we can basically get back to exactly where we were very, very quickly here in this section. And then we'll jump over to this area. Let me swap it back. And let's try to generate some of these here again. So basically you can just type out, any artist. This even works for comedians too as well. So there we go. Perfect. We got the Beatles in here today. Let's go ahead and click on the Beatles and you can see this kind of instantly generates us an audience based off of similar artists to the one that we typed in. So for our friend with the R&B example, you could type out some R&B artists here in this section. It would automatically generate an audience for you instead of you maybe needing to, type out a ton of R&B artists yourself. We always could add in individual interests here in the section or type them in here as well. Ooh, you use pets as an interest. Pet painting pet portraits. Wow, that's you gotta let me know when you're out in LA with that type of event. I think my family would love to go to that one. That's awesome. Pets is an interest. So that's just another perfect example, Carrie, of how you can use just general topics similar to your events that maybe tap into things that your customers are interested in or your customers have an affinity for. And it's okay to kind of go a little bit outside the box here. Just know, like, let's say, for example, we have, maybe close to 20 interests here in this section. If, like, all of a sudden Facebook kind of realizes, like, okay, we showed this to some people that were interested in Jimi Hendrix, but nobody really interacted with it. They would actually kind of stop showcasing it to individuals in that section. So I've had things where, I've had kind of an interest that's a little bit more fringe or out of the ordinary, doesn't perform that well. Facebook kind of stops showing it to that group anyway. So sometimes it's okay to go a little bit broader. Try something out of your comfort zone, as you wouldn't know effectively unless you try. So pretty much, y'all, I don't think we have any other questions regarding interest. Feel free to drop them in if you think of them a little later down the road, but seems like everybody's following along pretty well so far there. Now let's talk about the second kind of audience that we configure here. So it's really difficult to actually target people that interact with you on Facebook, Instagram, your past purchasers, maybe people that visit your website. If you wanted to do that with a Facebook campaign, you have to go to this audience section. You have to build like 4 or 5 separate audiences, and then you'd have to basically make individual audiences to kind of include all those, which in all honesty would probably take you around maybe 10 to 15 minutes to do if you were building a campaign, especially if you're not crazy fluid with the interface. So one really cool thing that we've done with Boost is help you automatically include an audience that helps you retarget to people that have higher purchase intent. And from all the data that we've seen, unless you're maybe throwing an event like a intro like wilderness hunting or something like that that people come to once and then they're a pro and then they don't need to come to it anymore, we found for most events that your customers are loyal. If you have a good event, they have a really good time, they will come out and they will purchase tickets for other events and other activities that you have. So it's always really important to market to people that interact with your socials, people that purchased for your past events, and we actually make it very, very easy. So in this section, we're automatically including an audience of people that interact with you on Facebook and Instagram, or Facebook and your Facebook events. So hence why using that add to Facebook is so important, is if you publish a Facebook event, you get 1,000 people to interact with it, you can actually help remarket to all those people that showed explicit interest that they wanted to, potentially attend your event. Now, if you also happen to have an Instagram account, just to let you know, this does need to be what's called an Instagram business account. It's a special account type. You could have like a regular account, creator account, or business. I'd recommend all y'all, if you haven't done it. It's a pretty easy swap in the settings of your Instagram, but switch it over as it just gives you a lot more data and insight when looking at your Instagram metrics. But if you have an Instagram business account, You can also remarket to that traffic. And then also, if you happen to have a Facebook pixel, so that's the thing that we automatically install, this will just help you remarket to people that go to eventbrite.com to basically hit up people that visit your ticketing pages. Now, most people are kind of opting out of this tracking nowadays, and honestly, we're kind of moving back slowly to the billboard days where this type of tracking isn't as effective. But it's still important, as this was one of the best audiences we previously used in the past couple years of marketing, as people that explicitly went out their way, went to eventbrite.com to visit your event, normally are pretty they're pretty close on the edge of their seat to purchasing that ticket. And then we got a question from the outlet LA. Is it a smart move to have a larger budget when you have so many interests? So fantastic point. So generally, if you have a larger budget, it's okay to go a little bit broader, as the way that the budgets work, and we'll cover it a little more down the road, or we can knock it out the way now, but the way that your budgets work, we'll skip back to that step. The way budgets work with Facebook is normally, at least in a country like the United States, for around every $10 you spend, you end up getting in front of, generally on average, around like 800 to 2,000 people, depending on the size of that audience. Now, what happens is as your ad campaign reaches more people, Facebook has more data on who's interacting, what's working, what's not working, and how can we narrow in and optimize the performance of it. So one challenge and a fantastic point that you had brought up, if you go way, way, way too broad, so that could be either having like way too broad of an interest audience, maybe using too many audiences or having too many variations of your creative, we're kind of splitting that budget really thin across all of these individual sections, so it can make it a little bit harder for Facebook to figure out what's working. So at least it's not always as important from the audience perspective. Like, it's okay to go a little bit broader, but let's just say you had like 100 interests in here that were random things and you were only spending like a $10 a day budget. Probably wouldn't be the most wise move, as it just would be hard for Facebook to kind of optimize as it gets in front of people to figure out what's working. Do fashion designers pop up in interests? Or example, Prada. I'm definitely guessing Prada would be in there. Let me try for that. I'd be disappointed if we couldn't target Prada or other luxury brands. Normally, most luxury brands. So actually, like, good point. We could actually target people that work at Prada, like employers of Prada, job titles, or people interested in that. I'm pretty sure fashion designers probably should show up in here as well. Let's trust it. Fashion designer shows up in here, and if I normally would recommend, you could just type out something like fashion to begin with, then get a pretty good feel for what comes up. But I know a lot of people, especially people in e-commerce that market like luxury jewelry and stuff like that, they generally kind of tap into targeting people that are interested in like these designer brands, or you can even target income. You could target people that are in like the top like 5% of like US zip codes in terms of income. There's a lot of crazy targeting that you can do with stuff like that. And lastly, we are also including an audience of your past purchasers for Eventbrite, and generally that's one of the most profitable audiences that you could remarket to. So basically, without you having to do a lot, we're including other audiences of individuals that have a lot of purchase intent. And additionally, we have something called smart audiences in our platform that allow you to target other people that have purchased for similar Eventbrite events to yours within your area, and use that data to help you go after brand new people as well. So that's a fantastic thing for even you more established creators that just want to tap into the network and size of the reach that Eventbrite has. Or if you don't really happen to have a lot of remarketing data as you're somebody that's just getting started, it's a great way that you could almost have remarketing data without having data that you explicitly acquired yourself in that section. So y'all, that's pretty much it for the audience section. You always can switch this over to the advanced version, which just gives you more customization of these audiences on kind of like a per basis here. So if we wanted to choose up, placements, or if I didn't want to target people that lived in Canada for some reason or stuff like that, you can always get a lot more granular here. And just to kind of show you, if I hit this add new button, we have so many different audiences that you could work with. If you're somebody that's familiar with all these Facebook custom audiences, or want to do a little bit more A/B testing, maybe see if targeting people interested in Prada does better than targeting people interested in Gucci or something like that, for example. For the most cases, y'all, what we're really trying to do is we're trying to help automate this system for helping you use a balanced mix of different types of audiences that are best for the data that you actually have available towards you. Basically, taking in like what I would normally do from a consultant type role, where I would tell people use these audiences, this is your strategy. We're actually pretty much automating that into the entire platform. So in most cases, you can probably just work with this view, as we'll handle the hard part for you. But just for those that really like to get into it yourself or are already pro ads manager users, we do have all those custom audience generations. Now here, y'all, when it comes to the schedule, kind of getting back to what we were talking. Oh, that's the wrong tab that we had there. When it comes to what we were talking about with the kind of that sales curve earlier, it's just most important to actually be marketing to your individuals when they're most likely to purchase, or matching up that type of the campaign that you're running with the schedule of when your customers would purchase. So let's say, for example, this ad was sending people straight to our ticketing pages. We know this is the ad we want to run when there's urgency to purchase. Maybe my event is on the 27th, so maybe I might run this campaign from today till the 27th. So just when it comes to scheduling your ads, try to think and contemplate, okay, when are people purchasing? If I was in my buyer's position, would I be likely to purchase right now? And then what was that overall objective if I was running? So if it was just kind of getting back to it, one of the ads that kind of goes straight to the ticketing pages, if we were a ways out from the event, we could maybe try one of these, but we probably wouldn't want to run it for too long. And you almost never want to have, besides some really, really rare cases, you generally would want to think of how you're advertising your event in smaller bursts. So maybe running an ad campaign for a week or two, or maybe like a month long, instead of having one ad campaign that runs from the second your event goes on sale until the actual date of your event that you spend continuously throughout that period, as most likely you're overspending in periods where your customers don't have urgency, and then you're underspending in the periods and not getting your ads in front of enough people when people actually do want to purchase. Now, skipping to this next section, you can always toggle between total budget and daily budget. Honestly, it's just whatever is going to make the most sense for you doing your calculations and cost reportings of these campaigns. If you're working with a budget that's not going to change, so let's say, for example, I'm rocking a $100 budget for this, probably just work with total budget. But if you are somebody that likes to fluctuate or change the budget on a daily basis, it's sometimes a little bit harder to do that calculate. Like, we'll add it all up for you of how much it is, but for you're constantly swapping from 5 to 10 to 10 to 15 or back to 7 or something like that, daily budget might be a little bit better. But just to let you know, it doesn't make a difference in terms of performance, so please just choose whatever budget option here is going to make the most sense for what you're actually doing. And if we're kind of working with like a default budget, in all honesty, guys, on a bare minimum end, bare minimum amount of budget generally is around like $2 to $3 a day per campaign, depending on what audience you're using. But again, as we were talking about earlier, the more that we spend, the more people our ad gets in front of, the better Facebook is able to optimize. So it's generally a tiny bit better to spend a little bit more than that bare minimum budget, as that effectively helps Facebook optimize your campaign a little bit better. But we'll always tell you and let you know too if the budget you put in isn't effectively hitting that minimum budget. Let me take a quick little water break here. And we're getting towards the end, y'all, of the campaign creation step. So just I want to make sure I address any questions that you have. So if you think of something or something in the past step that wasn't as clear, please feel free to let me know. I want to make sure that you're just getting some good takeaways here today. So the last step that we have here is simply customizing what's the design of the ad that we're running actually going to look like. So this is going to be what the people seeing our ad actually see when they're in Facebook or Instagram or effectively wherever that ad is running. So normally we're automatically pulling in the image that you are using with either your Eventbrite event or the Facebook event. Facebook used to have this weird vendetta, y'all, against like having text in your creatives. Like if it was over like 20% text, there was this crazy algorithm that would like flag it, and they're like, no, don't run it with that. They find they finally realized, all of us in the event space, we don't have anything else to work with a lot of times but flyers that have text on it. So you can totally run your ads nowadays with text in the actual flyers, and I think that just gives people context a lot of times for what we're doing. So just wanted to let you know, if you weren't aware of that change, it used to be a big no-go having text in the ad. You can totally do it now. So like this, creative I had here that has a good amount of text in it would perfectly fly, where back in the day it might not fly as well. You always can add in additional images or videos as well. So let's just say, for example, we wanted to maybe add in this other image to do a little bit of A/B testing. You can always A/B test any different component of the ad that you're creating here. So if I wanted to maybe test a different post text, which is the text that shows up above my ad, I could always click variation, try something out different here in this section. If I just wanted to have, maybe thumbs up or something, don't do that. That's just a weird example that we have here. But in all honesty, y'all, kind of as I was talking about earlier, one of our friends said in the chat earlier, is it bad if I have too many broad interests and I'm not spending enough budget? When it comes to the ad creative that you're actually using, if we add in so many variations here, and I was guilty of this myself when I first started, I thought, oh, more variations. That just means people are seeing different versions of my ad, there's going to be less creative fatigue of them seeing different versions. So I would go crazy and make like 60 variations in all my ads. It actually really killed my performances. There wasn't enough budget going towards each ad that we had to actually help Facebook figure out what's working in that section. So y'all, especially if you're working with smaller budgets, the only important thing to really A/B test is the image or video. Is we have like 2-second attention spans nowadays, and most oftentimes it really is the image or video you're using that captures people's attention. So you might as well focus on A/B testing what's actually most important for that visual element of gathering somebody's attention. But if there was anything else that you could A/B test, I'd maybe recommend like post text as a secondary one. As we move down, PostX will auto-generate something for y'all, but please feel free to delete this. Write something a little bit more fun, engaging, honest to your brand, your language, your tone that you end up using. As people a lot of times can see when an ad looks like it was built by a robot from a mile away, this is pretty cookie cutter. And let's say, for example, tons of other event creators in your area stop or they start adopting this same platform Boost. They use this exact same post text. I could completely understand if over time, if I was somebody that was seeing a lot of these ads as I was interested in events, I'd be like, wait a minute, I've seen this kind of same language in this ad like 10 times before. What's going on here? So I always encourage you, if you're on a time crunch, like feel free to customize this post text or just leave it as be. But I really would recommend like bring your own personality into it. We're all in events, we're a lot of fun people, so you definitely, I think, could write something a little bit more fun and engaging with this. And if you can't, just know I don't know them off the top of my head, but there actually are a lot of really cool AI copywriting apps nowadays that you give somebody a little bit of information and an AI will actually write a pretty like convincing copy that actually looks like it was built by a human. Yeah, technology is getting a little bit too far nowadays. Going over to the link headline and the outlet. I see your question. Let me get to it right after I finish this creative thing. I just get off topic very, very fast. Then we have the link headline. This generally, you're just saying like, okay, what's the name of the event? Maybe giving people context on like where it's happening, when it's happening. In basically just somewhere in your ad, you want to make sure that you're addressing, okay, what's the event? What's going on at the event? When and where is the event effectively happening? You don't need to be redundant and have it in a lot of places, but just make sure you have it somewhere. And then always try to indicate if there's a sense of urgency or use language that fosters a sense of urgency to get people to purchase. As let's say, for example, maybe you're a festival, price of your tickets is going to increase by $100 if I don't purchase this Friday. If you don't tell me that explicitly in the ad that I'm looking at, we can't be under the assumption that I'm going to know that if I don't click on the ad. So if there are things like the show's going to sell out really quick, limited capacity, or prices are going to increase, make sure you address that somewhere in your ad, as we can't be under the expectation that people are just going to know that if it's not in the copy of your ad, as those people might not be clicking through. Anything that you can use to foster a sense of urgency is very, very helpful for what you have going on. And then link headline, or we talked about the headline. Description, this doesn't even show up in some of the ad placements nowadays, so feel free to just leave this blank. It generally describes why somebody would click on the buy tickets or call to action button in your ad. So, they're going to Eventbrite or to RSVP. Then in this last section, we're simply choosing the call to action. If you're selling tickets, y'all, just use the buy tickets one. By far the most effective. May seem like a little bit of a shotgun sell, but it really is, from all the testing that we've done, statistically the best one that you could use. But if you're doing something like a free event, you could potentially use something like a sign up or a book now or a learn more or something like that. But for most of us that we are advertising paid events, buy tickets is normally the best option. We've had a lot of free events use the buy tickets button as well. And last thing is, if we have specific creatives for Facebook, for Instagram, like let's say we got a really nice vertical creative, this one that we had right here is kind of landscape, so it looks good on Facebook and Instagram, but maybe not the most professional on Instagram stories. We could always change up the specific crop or the image, or if we're working with video content, the video or the thumbnail on a per placement basis here. And I think, y'all, that is the last thing to mention in terms of the creatives. We can always get previews of what's going on the right hand side, and just make sure if you're working with this, turn your ad blocker on or turn it off for this site, as these technically are ads. So if you had an ad blocker on, your ad preview actually wouldn't appear. That threw me off a ton when I first started using this. I was like, why isn't it appearing? It's because it's actually generating an ad that we had here. And Carrie, yes. So Boost is a paid app. We do offer a free 14-day trial for you to come in and run ads. You still pay for the cost of the campaigns yourself, but then we have a couple different plans depending on how much you actually spend on paid ads a month. But our main goal with this is actually help save you time, incorporate audiences that are going to help you get a better return through intelligently optimizing and shifting that budget from what's not performing to performing well. So, especially for a lot of creators that do a ton of paid advertising, really allocate over this, you'll get a better return for a platform using a platform like this than if you were to just run it in Facebook, that normally it ends up paying for itself with what you have going. But feel free to just start that free 14-day trial to actually give it a test, see if this is something that's actually beneficial for you. It brings you better results too as well. And then getting to the Outlet LA's question, I'm curious to know who would I get in contact for partnerships with Eventbrite. So my apologies, I do not know that off the top of my head. In all honesty, I might Google like partnerships at Eventbrite. My team personally just handles the Facebook and Instagram ad site here. And to give you all a little context, I actually come from a company called ToneDen. We were a music and event marketing automation software platform. We were acquired by Eventbrite last November, and what Eventbrite has done is they've taken our event advertising technology and built it into their platform. Hence, Eventbrite Boost is a combination of our technology and then Eventbrite's existing marketing technologies. So my apologies that I do not know the answer to that question off the top of my head, as I am a little bit new to the Eventbrite realm as well. But feel free to just honestly, from what I found in my experience, when I don't know something with Eventbrite, I generally just try to Google it and look up partnerships, and there most likely should be a contact there for you. Or feel free to like reach out to us via the help section as well. I can hit up a couple other people to maybe put you in touch with somebody on the partnerships team, but just wanted to be fully transparent with you, as I honestly don't know too much about that myself. Awesome, y'all. And simply that is the last step of creating your ad campaign. I'd recommend go ahead and save it as a draft if you're not ready to get launched live, so you save your progress. But the really nice thing about actually building a couple campaigns is you'll realize, especially if you are throwing a pretty similar type of event, in all honesty, you actually, once you build one or two campaigns, you can simply duplicate any past campaign that you build, and we only might be changing a couple variables in the campaign. We might be potentially choosing a new event instead of the previous one. We might not even be changing anything in the account step. Maybe let's say, we have a venue where all our events happen in one city. Odds are we're not even changing this. We might not even potentially need to change anything in the targeting section whatsoever. All we might actually be doing is changing a schedule and then maybe changing up a budget, changing up a couple words in the design of the ad. So we've really tried to build out this system that hopefully is going to empower you to have a rinse and repeatable strategy to market your events. As when I kind of worked out of the concert venue, it almost felt like I was doing more of something like Mad Libs, where I was filling in the blank and changing a couple variables every time I went to go build a new ad, instead of having to reinvent the wheel and kind of start everything from scratch. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to touch on today. Let's just take a brief second. We are getting pretty close to 12 here. Just wanted to address any other questions or anything that you had, or any ideas that you had, or stuff that we could cover in future webinar sessions as well. I generally do this every Thursday. It's a pretty similar script of what I do here, so it might be a repeat of the information that you had here, but always feel free to pop in if you have any extra questions, or you could reach out to us via the help button in the platform too as well. I work customer support in here when I'm not, on calls or doing stuff like this. So if you need to have some more questions as me, for me specifically, like feel free to reach out to us via there as well. Awesome. And there is a little delay, so sorry if your questions are coming in. Got to figure out how to get that sorted for the next time. But I just want to thank you all very much. I know you as event promoters have so many different things on your plate, and honestly, we'd probably rather be at a happy hour or enjoying dinner with our family or something right now than watching a video on Facebook and Instagram ads. But I know the reason that you're here is because you're really passionate about this. You're passionate about the events you're throwing, and ultimately, you want to figure out better ways to help bring people together to do what you do. So I just wanted to show my appreciation for y'all. I really applaud you for coming in, learning, trying some new stuff here today, and thank you for taking the time. Your time means more to us than we could possibly imagine. I'll be here next week again. Again, my name has been Sam, and just wanted to thank y'all very much. We'll give it one more quick second. Tam, thank you so much. You were the first one here today, and you were the last one out. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And we'll get that second monitor fixed for the next time, so I'm not straining my neck every single time I gotta look down at the chat. Awesome, y'all. Thank you so much. Have a blessed rest of your Thursday. Enjoy your weekend. Take a little time off. Get some relaxation in. Y'all deserve it. My name has been Sam, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Take care, everybody, and thank you again for your time.